Well, there's nothing going on, and
All right. See you
yeah,
tomorrow.
yeah. Well, so I don't know how much you've been on the Twitters or whatever, life in general. I was watching just some of the old stuff and laptops and whatever yesterday, and I hacked this together. And so, do you remember at the Surface Book? Yep, Surface Book. They showed off the commercial, and then they
Mhm.
did their little announcement thing. They said, "Hey, you need to watch it again because," and they changed
And
some things.
then, yes, I remember
So
that distinctly.
I've done that to
Hmm.
the Apple keynote announcement here, and I've queued
Like
it
it.
up. And so I want you to tell me if you notice anything different about this MacBook Air announcement
Versus the one
versus.
that happened in real life.
Yeah, you ready?
Okay. Yep.
I've been having dreams, jumping on a trampoline, flipping in the air. I never land, just float there.
They.
So the big difference, obviously, was that the computer you just showed has a real microprocessor in it and it requires venting, right? I mean, other than that, I would say these things are roughly identical.
It dawned on me as I was watching this. I was like, man, these guys, and clearly Microsoft copied Apple because Apple's been using the exact same style for, I don't know, 5, 7, older than Surface probably at this point. But they have the exact same marketing cadence and everything. Like the music lines up damn near
It's
perfectly.
almost like where there's like a slow-mo entry of some image, and then it kind of speeds up to the boom, boom, boom. I don't know what you call that. I'm not
Hmm.
a video editor, but I'm sure that's a well-known effect.
Yep.
It's like a visual. It's like in text when you bold something to kind of to highlight it. It's a visual emphasis or highlighting.
Yeah.
It's a very interesting effect.
It is, and clearly it works because, well,
Hmm.
everybody's now doing it, and they keep selling lots and lots of products. And
I you know I got to tell you, with this Apple stuff, I am really struggling.
mhm.
And I struggle with this in a way that I feel that Apple's fan base never struggles. Um, and I'm trying to see the value of it. I wrote a lot of words this morning. I described this yesterday about how they've been quietly jacking up prices over the past few years, and my reason that I
Mhm.
think they're doing it, which is they're losing market share and they have to squeeze more money out of each product they sell and out of each customer they have, and they're in kind of a unique position to do this, partially because of the excellent relationship that they have with their own customers, but practically speaking, it's probably kind of an age-old argument or an age-old problem. But I look at this product, well, the MacBook Air in this case, and I compare it to the one that came before, and I don't understand how they got from there to there. Like if you looked at the MacBook Air and you said, okay, we need to update this thing. It's years out of date. Like, what would you fix? Screen. Yep, got it.
Mhm.
you know. Um, there are a couple of things and they did that, right? And there are a couple of things that Apple did that I didn't expect at this, for this product line, like the Touch ID, which is awesome, without a touch bar, which is awesome.
Mhm.
Um, we knew they were going to have USB-C ports, right? I mean, they're Thunderbolt 3. That's fantastic, right? It's good. They're both on the same side of the machine. Okay, whatever. Colors, but the Y series processor is like a dagger through the heart of this thing.
Yeah.
And their emphasis on what they called, and I would call everyday tasks. They're setting the stage like this is not a pro device, and but this thing, real world, is probably not any better than the 5 or 4 year old 5th generation Core i5 processor that's in the old one. They're probably roughly identical from a performance standpoint,
Mhm.
and that's not what you should expect from a brand new computer, right? The whole
Yeah.
computing world just benefited from a quad core upgrade that is free. It's free. And you're not going to get it in the MacBook Air. And that is such a ripoff. And then you look at the final nail in the coffin, so to speak, is the price.
Yep.
This thing is $300 more to start than it should be. 300. It's not $100 more, right? They didn't just like, you know, push it a little bit. Like it's like 13. Are you like seriously? Are you kidding me?
Mm-hmm.
I have a hard time with this. Am I the only one? I feel like I'm the only one that stresses over this. Like I don't understand it.
I didn't intend to do this, but I just hacked this together and was like, you know what? I'm just curious, and I just started comparing them, and I actually just made a little video and threw it up, just Surface Laptop 2 versus MacBook Air. And walking through it, it's the only justification, and there I struggle with this to buy the MacBook Air. The only justification is you want Mac OS. That is it, because even the thinness that they argue for the Surface Laptop 2 versus MacBook Air. The MacBook Air at its thinnest is 0.16 inches and goes up to 0.6, and the Surface Laptop 2 is around 0.5. So at the thickest portion of the MacBook Air, the Surface Laptop 2 is thinner. Now, granted, it teardrops and all that other crap, but who gives a shit?
No, but I would argue the thickest part is the thickness of the device, and that's the thickness you have to worry about.
And then for that extra money, you get 2 less cores. And
it's worse than that, though. You don't just get 2 less cores. You know, it's the performance delta is so different. Anyway, go on. I'm sorry.
Well, and then battery life too. So I was thinking, okay, maybe I can justify in my head rationally that if it has less cores, you're going to get better battery life.
That would be the point, wouldn't it?
Yeah, but it's not. Apple says they get around 13 to 13 and a half hours watching video, and Microsoft says they get 14.5.
Right.
So again,
what does the old one get?
Yeah.
You know.
Which, funny enough, that you mentioned that Apple is still brazenly selling the old one for $1,000. You can buy it right now with a 1.8 gigahertz dual core fifth generation. Woo.
$800. I'd say you've got a winner, but that would be assuming that the new one was $1,000. Right?
I think their product line is a mess right now.
I do too, and honestly. You kind of have to celebrate the fact that they finally updated some Macs. The iPad Pro, like, who gives a crap? I have no understanding. I've spent a lot of time pricing these things. I'm sure you've done the same thing. And it's like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, I don't remember the exact prices, but I want to say that you go one up because you always have to go one up on the model because the base one is always ridiculous. They always do the thing where you have to go to 256, not 64 to 128. You have to go to 250. Okay, fine. You add a pencil, which, as we discussed yesterday, more expensive than last year. Add a smart keyboard, as we discussed yesterday, more expensive. This thing is like $1,250. Like, what the, like, who, what? And what are they selling it on? The pro version of Photoshop that's going to come out any time now, someday.
So somebody tweeted this at me, and I can't remember who it was, and I apologize, but they said, do you realize how bad it must be to be a Photoshop engineer? Because your product is used in every keynote as an intensive task. Everybody says this is a shit app and it uses too much resources, so we're going to demo it.
By the way, Photoshop is a shit app. Okay, let's be clear. Not only does this thing date back to the 1980s, but most of the stuff that I use in it that I find to be useful is actually an add-on that was written outside of the app. Is in fact its own processor that has nothing to do with Photoshop, can crash on its own independently of Photoshop, often does. Photoshop is a train wreck. I have been actively seeking to replace Photoshop ever since I started using Photoshop.
Yeah.
And there's these products that kind of come close, and I have very specific needs. I'm sure for some people you can use whatever, Paint. But yeah, Photoshop is a crap app. So, Steve Jobs went to his grave, ensuring Flash would never be on the iPad. These guys have hopped in bed with the same company, and they're going to put an even bigger pig on the iPad, So, yeah, good luck.
Yeah, and then the other thing is, too, so now Apple has this awkward just MacBook. So they have the Air, which they announced. They have the MacBook Pro, and then they have a 12-inch MacBook that kind of sort of sits in the middle of the price range. They should have killed this product yesterday and just given you real processor choices in the MacBook Air and called it a day.
I actually, all right, not like I would run, Apple better than Tim Cook. I don't mean it like that. But as far as, designing products and releasing new upgrades and things, I feel like anyone could do a better job. They have a thing called a MacBook, right? It's 12 inches. It's small. It uses Y series processors. It's fine for everyday tasks. Everyone will tell you. $1,000. Upgrade that. Make a 13-inch version. Call it the Air or don't. I don't give a crap. But I don't know why they need three kinds of MacBooks. I got to be honest.
Yep.
There's nothing more Air-like about this new thing than the little guy. I mean, if anything, you could kind of reverse the names, whatever. But
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Like,
the brands don't make any sense. The price of the MacBooks today don't make any sense. They never really did. The price of the Air makes no sense.
mm-hmm.
The fact that you can't buy a 15-inch MacBook Pro without the touch bar, with this little Play School feature for idiots, it doesn't make sense. If Apple actually gave people choices, they might be surprised by what they would choose. Actually,
Yeah.
they wouldn't be, actually. But none of this, and I'm just talking about the Mac now, forget the other stuff. None of this makes sense. None of this. They just don't seem to line anything up in any way that makes any sense either,
Yeah.
Like the iPad Pro went to USB-C, and you're like, okay,
Mm-hmm.
I guess. Again, we're barreling towards some future where this thing will kind of make sense. It doesn't today. It's whatever. It's fine. But can you imagine, you don't have to imagine too hard. You have an iPhone, but I mean, if you used a Mac and you're every product, and you have a watch, and you have a desktop Mac, maybe, and a portable Mac. Every one of these things is at some different point technologically. If you want to do something like plug your iPhone into your Mac, you need a different cable for each computer, Or now you're like, I'm going to use an iPad Pro on the road instead with a keyboard. Well, you need a different freaking cable for that thing too, idiot.
Yep.
Like it's astonishing, like the complexity that they add just by doing this piecemeal.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't seem coherent.
Yeah. It's, I mean, the best part of this, Paul, is that if you bought a pencil for your last iPad Pro and you're going to buy a new iPad Pro, congratulations, you're buying a new pencil, because the new pencil, despite the fact that all pencils are, work on every type of paper and surface in the world, Apple's pencils only work on the device that they're released with, and your old pencil will not work with the new one.
Yeah. I guess you sharpened it down to a nub, and now you need a new pencil. I don't know. Someone, there's always this idiot, and I'm the guy. I don't mean he's like one person. There are a million of these idiots, but you will complain about what you just said something about the pencil, and you put this on Twitter, and some guy will say, "Excuse me, but when Microsoft upgraded the Surface Pro 2 to the Surface Pro 3, they changed the Surface Pen as well, and that was 2,000 years ago or whatever." Okay, yep, got it. What we're saying is that first thing they released, that had no button and no way to do anything else, that had no eraser, that had to plug in like a space shuttle docking to the space station to charge the stupid thing, and could roll around on a desk and stab somebody in the foot when it fell off. Maybe that was a bad design,
Mm-hmm.
That's what we're saying.
Well,
maybe it shouldn't have cost $20 more to release the one they should have released in the first place. And maybe, just maybe, instead of pointing out that someone else did something stupid, you could say Apple's a better company than that, and they would never make that kind of mistake. Just a thought.
It's even better than that, Paul. Because if you remember, what came in the Surface Pro 3 box? Remember? Yeah.
Surface.
Yeah, you didn't have to buy it. It just, granted, technically they're right. You could not use those pens on either device, but then Microsoft just gave you the pen in the next
With
gen.
the device.
Yeah.
Right. There was no benefit. Yeah, right. That's true.
Yeah. It's not like you lost money because whatever, it was in the box.
Well,
So-
you know what? At least if you go from iPad Pro to iPad Pro, you're not spending any more for that new peripheral, right? It's the same price. So, yeah. The pen is mightier than the sword, but the pencil hurts even more.
Well, the best thing is you can now charge your iPhone from the iPad, Paul.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Geez. I mean, this is like a feature that's been available to all kinds of different things for a long time. You could plug phones in phones. Yeah. Okay. Let's just give them a standing ovation. They did a great job.
Yeah. So how's that iPhone XR, by the way?
I like it a lot. I don't have an iPhone XS next to it to compare it to, right? If this was the phone, if this was like, here's our new flagship, I'd be like, yeah, I walked around this morning. I took some side-by-side shots with the Pixel 2 XL. I haven't actually compared them yet, but on a screen. But
Yeah.
Comparing them on just the devices, I see what I expect to see, which is there's some beautiful sun coming up type stuff going on.
Mm-hmm.
With the Pixel, you can kind of focus in on the very light spot. Maybe the sun behind the clouds or this part of the sky, and it does like a nice HDR effect where the rest gets dark, but it's still very clear. And the iPhone doesn't do that, but the iPhone never did that, right? So but it seems to take very color realistic photos. So I did last night at dusk. I took a couple of pictures this morning walking around. I took several pictures with each side by side, so I will compare them. But these are just outdoor shots. They're they're not extreme low light. They're not anything other than kind of striking because of the light quality. It's great, and I honestly, it's probably no different than an iPhone XS, but it's got a bigger bezel, right? I mean, and it's one of those things. I have kind of a dark background under now. I previously had the red background.
Oh, just your background?
Dark soul, whatever. But as far as like the resolution, people are saying like, oh, if you look really close, you can see pixels. No, it's gorgeous. Actually, it's super smooth and it's beautiful. I mean, it's
an Apple.
This
display.
is a nice phone.
Yeah.
What's that?
It's just an Apple. It's an Apple display. They've always made good displays.
Back when the whole world had moved to OLED and they hadn't, they still managed to have some of the best displays in the industry, right? Like they just do a great job with it. And I think, I don't know if it's just the sheer experience they have with shipping so many of these things and whatever it is, but this is a beautiful phone. And if you're looking for a new phone, and if obviously photography's job one, you want to spend the extra money and get the dual camera system, whatever. You'll probably never really realize any huge advantage to that, to be honest. But
I agree. The only advantage comes when you're zooming. That's primarily it.
Yeah, right. You don't get optical zoom on this, I guess. And you don't get the benefits of a dual camera system for like portrait mode, which I think is kind of a stupid hack anyway. But I overall, anyway, this phone's really high quality. The build quality is amazing. The display is amazing. I think that, in the article I wrote this morning, the kind of complaint I have about this, because I described it as the sweet spot of the lineup, and I still kind of feel that it is. But you have to kind of put it in the perspective of what it replaces, right? So if you compare like the iPhone XS and the XS Max to the Plus phones that Apple had released in the past, you see that the average selling price of the expensive ones has gone up dramatically, right? I don't remember the exact numbers off the top of my head, but I want to say the most you could have spent, what you would have spent on an upgraded iPhone 7 Plus, which I think I did, was like $950. That number's like $1,150 now, and $1,250 if you talk about the Max. Like that jump is humongous. But this phone, what this phone really replaces, it's kind of hard to say exactly, but it's the iPhone 8 or the iPhone 8 Plus. It's in there somewhere. It's not actually any more expensive than an iPhone 8 Plus. But what you wanted was the smaller phone, which I think a lot of people do. You actually only have one choice today, unless you want to buy an older phone, which is the iPhone XS, because this one's a little bit bigger. And so if you're comfortable with the small phone, which I think a lot of people are, Apple got rid of the SE. They don't have a truly small new phone now. They have this thing, which is as inexpensive as the 8 Plus was, but the 8 Plus was a really big phone. This is a big phone. It's a phablet. So if what you're looking for is that kind of 5.5 inch, whatever, like normal screen, like what was it before? 4.7?
Yeah.
iPhone 8. That phone does not exist. And the closest you can get to is the phone you have, which you've noted is bigger. Yep. But it's still smaller than this. And you pay a pretty penny for that thing, Yeah. You go from $850 to about $1150 for the upgraded version. That's a price hike, So this thing is it's reasonable from a cost perspective. Reasonable. It is reasonable. It's reasonable. It's a better deal it's a better phone than the Pixel overall, for sure. No doubt about it.
Well, good. I'm happy you're happy with one of your 12 purchases in the last 10 days.
I'm probably still going to return it, but it's you know what? Listen, this is not a new thought, and when I say that, I mean it's not new to me, and it's not new to anybody. But we've all kind of had that conversation around things don't make you happy. The one thing I found going through all these phones is like every one of them has something that I just don't like. None of them are awesome. None of them are perfect. Like if the Pixel 3 XL didn't have that huge notch, right? Which I've just described a different phone now. If it didn't have that terrible echoey sound through the speakers and the stereo that's off and biased to the right, maybe.
Yeah.
But I've just invented something. That phone does not exist. I just we don't fix the Pixel 3 XL to make it what I just described. I'm talking about maybe something they do next year. And that bugs me because you don't have to go back too far. When I was having all the problems with this phone in Stockholm in August, all I could think about was October. And I'm like, I'm going to have all kinds of choices. Probably going to go Pixel, but that doesn't work. I know there are new iPhones coming. This Note 9 or whatever it was called that was just released at the time. OnePlus will be releasing a new phone. Surely there'll be something that will make me happy in there. And I kind of found that there isn't.
Well, we mourn for your happiness.
I'm going to go spend the money on, I was going to say hookers and blow, but that's crazy. Probably like rum and whiskey would be more likely, or rum and sushi or something stupid like that.
Rum and sushi is what I think you would, maybe oysters.
Yeah, oysters, yeah.
Well, fun. I'm happy we're here for your emotional...
for my psychological counseling every day.
Yeah, exactly. Speaking of that, you got anything else today before we shut her down?
No, I was gonna publish my HP NVX2 review. I'm gonna hold off on that because I want to run some benchmarks on this thing. This computer, by the way, has a processor in it that's similar to the one in the new MacBook, MacBook Air. However, it's dogged by 4 gigabytes of RAM, which I think is the downfall of this machine. So I want to do some more benchmarks. I did that video encoding benchmark that I asked you to do. Remember on the Go, it came in at a horrific score. It was like 3+ hours. A new quad core machine can do it in about 40 minutes. Battery life has been horrific, and I feel like I'm getting something wrong here because I've tested it in a variety of different ways. I do a standard test of streaming HD video over Wi-Fi. I actually did it again, came up with the same thing, did it, but keeping the Intel recommended power scheme, same thing. I evaluated the real-world power battery life over time using the battery performance report you can get just in using the machine. It's exactly the same. This thing gets 5 hours of battery life. 5 hours.
Yeah, that's
just terrible.
It's like MacBook Air Gen 1.
Easily half what I thought it was going to be. And it's 1/4 of what you would get with the Qualcomm version, which, by the way, can't do anything anyway. So battery life there almost doesn't matter. But still, you would like it to 10 hours, 13 hours. It's just not there.
No.
I'll keep working on it, but it's written. I feel like I need a little more data before I can dig a grave for this thing. But let's just say I've already picked out the coffin. a lot of weird imagery today.
Yeah, very
Halloween maybe. I don't know.
It could be. It's
it could be. Halloween's kind of evolved into a fun kids thing. I guess you could.
Yeah. It's,
what about you, Brad? What's going on in your life?
Well, it's no joke. They said we're supposed to get between 4 and 7 inches of rain in the next 72 hours. So I'm assuming that everything's going to be flooded and life is over as we know it. I'm actually wondering if it's
going to impact Halloween for your child.
Yeah, I think you're probably going to have beautiful weather today because we had the most gorgeous day yesterday.
Yep.
And I don't know if we're going to be trick-or-treating tonight or if we're going out in ponchos or what the strategy is going to be here, but it's going to be a mess.
Well, maybe she should dress as Ariel this year. Some other water-related.
Well, she is going as a flamingo.
There you go. Oh, that's right. I knew that.
It kind of works. And then I think this afternoon, Paul has officially started editing the book. So I think I'm just going to post an update about where the book is, and hopefully here he's going to try for next Friday, I think, to be done, give or take.
I think having gone through the one chapter, I think that's doable.
Yeah, somewhere around there, and then I need 2 weeks to get it all prepped for release, and so it should be right on track for a late November release, right as I was hoping. So that is that, and that's about all we got for today. That wraps it up for today, folks, and we'll be back tomorrow in probably better moods, or maybe not. Who knows? We'll see what kind of crap comes our way. Have yourselves a wonderful Wednesday, and we'll catch you right back here next time.